Are you worried about today's dire financial situation?
Put simply, I would argue the Biden economic plan is working.
The storms on Wall Street continue today after regulators seized the assets of Silicon Valley Bank, marking the largest bank failure since the 2008 financial crisis.
Do you worry you'll have enough to pay your mortgage, pay your children's college tuition, enough to retire?
I believe our banking system remains strong.
Regional banks in focus once again today as the market digests the fallout of the First Republic failure.
You have questions, we have answers. It's the Gold Standard with Ken Russo and Jennifer Horn.
Thank you for joining us on the Gold Standard Radio Show with Ken Russo and Jennifer Horn. Glad to be back together again, even though we're a little cake hungover in the studio.
Birthday, Jennifer Horn.
That's right. Yes, February the 6th is my birthday. Ronald Reagan's birthday as well, which I always love celebrating with him. But we've decided that we can't have cupcakes before the show starts. It's a crash, like this economy.
Makes it tough to want to do a show, but we're here, Jen. We're going to dig deep.
We are going to dig deep, and that's because there's a lot of important information out there. Now, last week on the show, and if you join us weekly, thank you for that. If you're just joining for the first time, I hope you'll make it a habit to tune in right here on the Gold Standard. But last week, we went through a timeline of just kind of how we got into the debt crisis that we're in.
We are?
I know. Breaking news. We've got real problems. I sent you an article this week that soon the amount of interest...
But the Midas stock went up to an all-time high, and it was up 20%. I mean...
Must be great, right? It's what they're telling us. But I just sent you an article that said the interest on our debt is going to be more than the entire defense budget. Like right now, I mean, it's insane. So how did we get here?
I think we were talking about that about 6 months ago. See that?
I think so.
You do have a crystal ball.
I
What
know.
are we talking about this week?
Well, we started the timeline from really the beginning to now, how we got into this. But we thought we'd really focus in on what happened after 1971, the more recent spending, the more recent decision-making by some of our more recent leaders to lead us to this big bubble that we're in right now.
Why are we in this debt bubble?
It's a question.
An
you're gonna have
eventual
the
debt
answers.
crisis, yes.
Yeah.
I wanted to start this week, though, Jen, with a statement, though, that James Clark wrote for Midas Gold Group, who's one of the owners. And I thought it was important because we touched on Carrie Lake last week.
We did.
And we talked about how proud I was of her to kind of talk the way that a politician should talk and display the characteristics of a leader of our great country, you know, and some of the things that they should be saying.
Like integrity.
Rather than hating our country. But this is what James wrote, and I thought it was important enough to read. And this is the words from James. I am happy to call Arizona my lifelong home and the home of Midas Gold Group. While John McCain may be dead, his legacy was to turn Arizona politics into a bastion of political corruption with a GOP run by the Uniparty. The most recent demonstration was seen by the world through the unethical and perhaps illegal actions of Arizona GOP Chairman Jeff DeWitt. Thanks to Carrie Lake, we heard his attempts to deprive Arizona of its ability to vote for representatives of its choice. He appears to have tempted coercion and bribery. We touched on that. Rather than show remorse or reveal the name of deep state actors seeking to rule over elections, Jeff DeWitt played the victim card and blamed Carrie Lake of the MAGA Republican Party. Midas Gold Group calls on state and federal authorities to investigate crimes of cohesion and election interference in Arizona. We call on patriots to reveal the names of deep state actors so we the people can resoundingly tell them they are no longer in charge. As we at Midas fight for financial freedom, promoting gold and silver ownership, we also take up the cause of fighting for the future and independence of our republic and the integrity of our elections.
Great statement, and so important because so much of what we see, whether it's the stuff we talk about on the show from financial or economic aspects, what we see happening in our American cities is what happens when corruption runs rampant. And we need to start fighting back. We need to start saving our country. Absolutely.
We need to be better, and our leaders need to be better, and I thought it was well said. So here.
Yep. Thank you so much to James Clark from Midas Gold Group for that statement. And certainly, Ken, this is a good point for us to kind of jump in.
Yeah.
And we do every week on this program. We start usually in 1971, and that was Richard Nixon when he took us off the gold standard and gave us fiat currency. So take us through that moment, and sometimes we even are joined by the past presidents. It's magic the way we get.
What do you mean?
The way we get Nixon in studio, it's like we summons him from beyond.
I thought he was dead.
Well, yes, he has passed, but he sometimes
You would
appears
never
on the
know.
show. Right?
Yeah. And what's the focus of what we're talking about? And we've done it. We did a show just a couple weeks ago. How did we go from real money, which our money was backed by gold at one time,
It was interchangeable.
other countries of the world, right, to now fake money, which in essence is just currency, because currency is not a store of value. Real money is. And that was all made possible in 1971 when our dollar was completely turned into a fiat dollar, which means that it was now backed by nothing. And in essence, it allowed the government, which up until that point had to be, responsible.
Yep.
They couldn't just spend how much money they wanted to spend or borrow as much money as they wanted to borrow. But it kind of slowly started the motion of that particular thing, and that's where we find ourselves today in a situation where the spending is going exponential and the debt has gone up so many fold over the last few decades. It's head scratching that how could this continue? And the leaders that we have literally tell us we can print as much as we want and we can spend and borrow as much as we want. And we know because we control things and we're going to be just fine. Well, I'll tell you what. Eventually, it will come home to roost.
Sure.
It eventually is not going to be fine. And the question is how can we protect ourselves from being financially ruined when this big bubble of debt and borrowing and fake money bursts?
Yeah, because when that happens, it's going to be chaos.
It is. And then we're talking about the safety of our money, the privacy of our money, not to mention the value of our money. And the easiest way to put it, Jen, is since we started in 1971, we've seen many bubbles that have popped, and then they reinflate those bubbles through monetary policy and abnormally low interest rates. And then we have recessions and stuff, and then the bubbles pop again. The situation we're in today because of, the dot-com situation and because of the subprime mortgage situation in 2008, those problems were never fixed. The only thing they did was kick the can down the road.
Right. Which is the answer to many of our problems.
Right. So the question is if you've done the right thing and you've tried to save and you've tried to invest and you've tried to, invest in certain places at the right time and you're sitting on a nice nest egg, it would really be a damn shame to see it just disappear, during the next popping of this big bubble. How could you distance yourself from what's coming? Because no amount of money that they can print, Jen, and no amount of money that they can borrow or spend is going to stop from what's coming. And the question is can you have purchasing power outside of the system in the form of a tangible asset like gold and silver, so that no matter what happens to the market, no matter what happens to the inflated assets of stocks or real estate or corporate real estate or bonds at this point, because it's all in a bubble, no matter what happens to the value of those paper assets, no matter what, you still have your physical gold and silver either in your IRA or in your own possession. It will always be worth something, and we know based on the track record of gold and silver, it's going to outpace the value versus if you just held on to paper money.
Right.
And
this is your ultimate personal protection. Right?
That's
your
the relationship.
Yep.
That's the relationship. So I would just tell people, like we've talked about many times, you don't have to comply. Gold will provide you, the seniority that you're looking for and the sovereignty that you're looking for and the privacy that you need. And I would say today, Jen, it's more important than ever because the risks associated with everything that's going on are more egregious and outrageous than ever. The debt situation is out of control. The deficit spending is out of control. They're telling us that Social Security and Medicare and stuff is going to be empty by the early 2030s. And what are our answers from our leaders? Well, that's okay. We're just going to go to 40 trillion, 50 trillion, 60 trillion, 100 trillion. Like you mentioned, the debt The interest that we pay on our debt is now more than we pay for our security of our defense.
Yeah, and how much more of this can we take? I mean, you can't just keep spending and spending and spending and printing more and more money.
Well, it's inevitable that they're going to have to even ramp that up even more than what they're doing now because the system is so leveraged and it's so addicted to debt. The largest property developer 2 weeks ago, Evergrande in China, failed, completely bankrupt. They're over $300 billion. You know, people put money down for houses. They never got their houses or their apartments.
Wow.
You don't hear about it. Some of the largest banks, and you'll see another bank fail soon called New York Community Bank, which is on its way down because, like we said, these regional banks and other banks, the problems were never fixed. And then you have that bank term lending program. It's over in March. So the slow walking of all of this stuff, it's already on fumes. And eventually, something is going to disrupt this whole fake process. And when that happens, you don't want to be financially destroyed. That's why it's important to be making some of these moves now before it happens.
That's right. You don't want to be trying to pick up or play catch up after the system breaks, after the bubble bursts. So here's what you need to do. Don't wait another minute. Call Midas Gold Group. They are America First Patriots, veteran owned. They have storefronts, as you heard, in Phoenix, Arizona, also in Thousand Oaks, California. You can go in and talk to someone face-to-face, or you can call 855-322-GOLD, 855-322-4653 for Midas Gold Group. You can also text the word gold to 232425. Midas gets right back to you. And always check out the website, MidasGoldGroup.com. But there is that protection, that personal freedom, that ability to separate yourself from the chaos and the craziness and the bubble with real money that comes in the form of gold and silver.
Yeah, and keep your money private, some
That's
of
right.
it. Keep your money, in a situation where it's going to retain at least its value, and keep a portion of your money in your own control where it'll be safe. Yep. So, I mean, I don't see what the downside of all that is. And I actually think it's going to allow a lot of people over the next decade to stay pretty much financially intact when it does get bad. And it will. It's just a matter of time, and who knows what's going to trigger it, but we'll see.
Whether you're a first-time gold and silver buyer or you're looking for a new precious metals buyer, call Midas Gold Group right now, 855-322-GOLD, 855-322-4653, 855-322-GOLD, or text the word gold to 232425. Always at MidasGoldGroup.com. There's more up ahead. It is the Gold Standard Radio Show with Ken Russo and Jennifer Horn.
Dr. Gorka here. You're listening to the Gold Standard with your hosts, Ken Russo from veteran-owned Midas Gold Group and Jennifer Horn. Owning private money in the form of physical gold and silver is perhaps more important than ever to your long-term financial security. As U.S. banks fail, the Biden administration sends hundreds of billions abroad while depleting our strategic oil reserves. However, the biggest financial threat may be coming from within: central bank digital currency. The patents have been filed and the big banks have released plans for implementation. Midas Gold Group sees tyrannical implications: the end of cash, the end of financial privacy, big government able to see your every purchase. Could there be ties to social credit? Hear more commentary on the political and economic issues that affect your financial security right here on the Gold Standard. You can create your own Gold Standard with a call to Midas Gold Group, 855-322-GOLD. That's 855-322-4653, MidasGoldGroup.com.
Welcome back. It is a Gold Standard Radio Show with Ken Russo and Jennifer Horn. Happy to have you along with us today. And Ken, thought we'd go through some of the big news stories of the last couple of days. One of them is one that I sent to you, and it popped up. It's something we've talked about before, but that's the amount of our interest, basically. The interest on our American debt is now going to be higher than our total defense spending for this country.
Shocking.
Stunning.
Yeah,
These numbers, I mean, it's not shocking if you listen to the show and if you listen to you talk about this, and we know that this is predicted and we know it's coming, but think about what that means.
I mean, eventually it's a problem. I mean, and where does the money come from for the interest? Well, they print that too. Well, they print that too. So, I mean, basic economics is the more supply there is of something, the value goes down.
Mm-hmm. And that means your money and your buying power start to disappear.
So is it any secret why a dollar from 1971 is now worth 15 cents? Mm-hmm. Is it any secret that a dollar from 23 years ago, from 1999, is now worth 55 cents? Reggie, who you know, who works for Midas Gold Group, went to a hamburger chain last week. Okay. And, you know, I don't want to call out the chain, but it's a regular chain.
For research. Okay. He was there for research.
He was there. Well, he was a little hungry. He got a double patty.
Okay.
No sides, no drink, no cheese, no toppings. $15.67.
For 2 pieces of meat on a bun.
Yeah.
Wow.
So the question is, I mean, where is all this going to end? I mean, what's going to happen, to when there is going to be a recession? Eventually, I mean, people are putting a lot of their money right now on credit cards. Mm-hmm. What's going to happen when there's a recession? You know, we're only supposed to spend what the government takes in on taxes.
That's it.
So when there's a recession, we're not going to take in as a country, you know, we're going to take in less taxes. Mm-hmm. How much of a percentage of that is going to be wrapped up even just in the interest of our debt?
Right.
We're getting into historical situations where other countries and other superpowers have kind of entered this territory before. Mm-hmm. It ends badly every time. It's because of the fiat money, because they keep just printing and printing. I have no doubt that eventually the Fed is going to even have to ramp up the amount of money that they're going to print, probably to the later on this year. Mm-hmm. So all of this, well, we're going to do quantitative tightening. We're going to kind of rein back. Eventually, there's not going to be anybody who's going to want to buy our debt. So who's going to do it? Well, the Fed is probably going to have to start doing quantitative easing programs again. It's a Ponzi scheme.
That's what happened during COVID, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a problem. So interest rates in that scenario will go back up. If the United States has to refinance its debt at a much higher interest rate, that's a huge problem going forward. The United States government has kind of artificially lowered interest rates a little bit the last few months because they auctioned off shorter term duration bonds instead of, it's all a shell game. It's ridiculous. And we're talking about the greatest country in the world. Now, the old saying is, well, if the ship is going to go down, I'm going to go down with it, right?
Right.
It's not acceptable.
But do we really want to? I mean, especially when we don't trust the people driving the ship.
Now, these other countries, these other countries see this. Mm-hmm. They see our deficits. They see what's happened, you know, in the timeline. We go from
like blood in the water.
The war of terror, spent trillions. Subprime mortgage crisis, trillions. You know, the COVID, which was a very, easy reason to spend 10, 20, 30, 50 trillion globally. Other countries see this. They see the deficits. They see the leadership. They see how our finances are definitely spinning in the wrong direction. What are they doing? They're backing up their currencies with gold. They're buying tangible assets. But more importantly, they don't want to buy our debt anymore.
It's a pretty scary thing when you think about that, when we used to be the most trusted source and now we're losing that reputation. If you are interested in learning more about Midas Gold Group, MidasGoldGroup.com, 855-322-GOLD, 855-322-4653. I do want to dig into another current event that we talked about just a few moments ago before the break.
The break.
That would be a Freudian slip. Before the break, about the collapse of this big company that you talked about. This is Evergrande that collapsed. So tell us about why we haven't heard about this. You would think this would be a big news story, especially for those of us who are interested in tracking the situation of the economy. We haven't heard anything.
Yeah, well, our system, Jen, falls apart when people stop borrowing. Mm-hmm. Our system falls apart when people take money out of the banking system. You know, they want to take money out of the paper markets. So it's done on purpose so that people remain calm. They don't want to move their assets around. They don't want people to have privacy. They don't want people to take control of their own situation. They want them to be reliant on Wall Street because we all know that Wall Street has our best interests in mind.
Oh, absolutely.
So you don't hear about these things until it's too late. I mean, I watch business television all the time. You don't hear the real news. All you hear about is what stock is making an all-time high today. It doesn't even matter if most of the stocks aren't doing that well, if it's concentrated in just a few names.
Yeah, if they can find one, they want to tell you about that one, right?
That's right. It's not a realistic view of what's really happening. So the economy is not as good as you would think. It's still being supported by fake money. I talked about more regional banks that are seriously in trouble. The bank term funding program, which has been kind of slow walking the inevitable for these banks over the last year, ends in March. The bottom line is what new name are they going to come up with for more fake money? What reason are they going to come up with for more fake money? And in the meantime, the system becomes more scary, more risky, more, not private, more unsafe, and our dollar loses more and more value. So they can say whatever they want. They can twist the numbers around however they want. The numbers that they come out with are absolutely ridiculous and outrageous. They're all skewed. They're all meant to support a certain agenda. I would challenge anybody who's listening to take matters into their own hands and to prepare for what's coming. And financially, the easiest way to do that is to take some money out of their system. They want to use our money to run their system. It's not acceptable. Get some distance between yourself and what's going on. And the easiest way to do that is if you have an old 401k, if you have an IRA, if you have some non-qualified accounts, maybe at the bank, hedge your bets, take some of your profits, hopefully, off the table, get out of some of these dwindling dollars, put it into gold. And I do think gold in the next 10 years will probably go up 2 or 3 times in value. Not that gold is going up in price, Jen. It's because our dollar is losing value. It's being devalued on purpose.
And we've seen it. We've seen it historically,
and
right?
You're starting to see it more now.
Yeah. So if this is sounding like something that you're interested in, if you're thinking, I better be prepared, I better be ready, this is a great way to hedge on your investments. You can take an existing IRA, 401k, put it into gold, keep it in your own safe so it's accessible to you if you need it. Or you can call Midas Gold Group and talk about all your options. They're going to lay them out for you. 855-322-4653. That's 855-322-GOLD. You can always check out the website, MidasGoldGroup.com, MidasGoldGroup.com. And now is the time. You don't want to be trying to play catch up. We talk about this all the time. If you are really serious about it, pick up the phone, call today, 855-322-4653, 855-322-GOLD, or text the word GOLD to 232425.
Yeah, when everybody tries to get out of the same barn door at the same time.
Doesn't
musical
work.
Chairs, there's not always a chair for everybody. There's not going to be enough gold eventually for everybody.
There's a limited supply.
It's limited, yeah. Unlike our dollars, which is unlimited, that's where the problem comes into play. It's been building up for decades, and now it's reaching a very important breaking point.
Yep, it's a crescendo.
Yes. And I don't know if that's a week from now, if it's 6 months from now, or even 6 years from now. I don't know. I don't really care. But if I have the ability to move some money around now, if I have the ability to make a move so that my family's better protected now, if I have a chance to move some money into something that no matter what happens, I know it's there, I have to do that for what's coming.
Yeah, for your future, for your family's future. 855-322-GOLD. 855-322-4653. And the thing that I always like, that I love to mention when we're talking about this, is that gold is still a private transaction. So not only does it give you the safety, the stability, it holds on to your purchasing power, it brings all of that to you, but it also is still private. It's away from the system. So you don't have to rely on anybody else.
Right. And because of religious beliefs, because of political affiliation, because of what you say, your assets are at risk. They're shutting people down. It's not a secret. It's happening. So you don't have to be subject to that. They're using the dollar as a weapon against us. They're using it against other countries. Like I said, you don't have to have all of your assets in a system like that. It would make a lot of sense to lighten up at this point, considering that we're in the most risky environment of all time.
Don't be a victim. Protect yourself, protect your family, protect all of that money you've worked so hard to earn. Call Midas Gold Group today, 855-322-4653. 855-322-GOLD. You can also text the word GOLD to 232425. Midas will get right back to you. And always, MidasGoldGroup.com. Ken Russo, thank you so much.
And happy birthday again, Jen.
Thank you. Thank you for listening. It's a Gold Standard Radio Show with Ken Russo and Jennifer Horn.